Okay, so coming to a still position, just mentally preparing ourselves. And join me when you're ready. Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahabhiryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu, ma vitveshavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Opening your eyes when you're ready. So welcome everyone to today's talk and a happy new year to you all. So today our topic is on karma and the role of the free will. And we're going to, as usual, I'm going to tell you a little bit what we'll be talking about. So I'll introduce the concept of karma, so bear with me. And so before we do that, we'll just recap very briefly talks 1 to 4, so that we see where we're going with this. And then we're going to look at the correct understanding of the free will. And we're going to look at some misconceptions that are around karma that people kind of think is true about karma, which probably isn't. And we're going to talk a little bit about karma and reincarnation, and to help us understand the question, what am I doing here? So we're looking not just what we're doing in this life, but then why are we here tonight? So, we're also going to, as usual, look at the implications of the karma theory for our lives. So at the end of each talk, we kind of reflect a little bit about how is this relevant to us. So in terms of the talks 1 to 4, what we've looked at is, and we've kind of almost agreed on, is that everyone out there is looking for security, peace, and happiness. And there is a tendency to look at all these things in outside objects, but then there comes a point where we kind of realize that actually all these things are found inside of us, and it is a matter of tapping into that source to be able to experience those despite whatever else is happening around us. And so we also looked at why are we looking elsewhere? Why aren't we looking inside? Why aren't we doing why aren't we doing what we're supposed to do, which is look inside? And we kind of looked at the problem of identification with the body, with the mind, and how we think we are these things. And also, we don't really know who we are, and we think we are these bodies. We looked at the concept of the bodies, of the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. And also we looked at the 5 sheaths, and then we realized that we are actually beyond all these bodies and beyond all these sheaths. And therefore we are the pure consciousness, or sometimes we've used the word Atma or Atman to refer to this pure consciousness, which is all pervading, it's everywhere, it's unborn, and therefore because it's unborn, by definition, it is also immortal. And we have used this term quite a bit, looking at Sat Chit Ananda And also for those who come to the yoga class, we've been looking at the universal prayer where we talk about these as well. And so this pure Ananda is just the state of complete awareness and real, and we get a little bit of some glimpses about what that might be in deep sleep. Sometimes we kind of get some idea of when we come out of deep sleep, we kind of think, oh, it was good, it was really good, but you were there even though you've got no idea what happened during that time. And also sometimes when we do something that we really love, we kind of got lost, we get lost, we lose ourselves into it. It could be music, it could be dance, it could be anything that it could be a good book, it could be anything that sometimes we feel, we just forget everything around us, and then we just totally identify with what we're doing, and we've got no concept of time, no concept of anything. So this gives us the glimpses of what this real happiness could be. And so I is the witness, so I, the Atman, or the is the witness and is always there, but does not get involved with the drama. And so that's the concept of the witness. So sometimes at the beginning of class, we kind of observe ourselves from the time we get up to the time we come to class, and then observing. So it's this idea of being a witness to what is happening, and that's what the Atman does. And we also looked in the last talk around at the concept of Ishvara, what is commonly referred to as God, as the creator. So we didn't use the word God, we said we wanted to use the word Ishvara, just so that we do not, we kind of have got no misconception about what we mean. So Ishvara, or God, as the creator, is what we are looking at. Okay, so oops, sorry, okay. Right, so we also briefly looked last time at a few laws, and this is the law that we're going to be looking at in a lot more detail today. So it is the law of cause and effect. And so I think we all agree on this, is that the law of cause and effect states that every cause has an effect, and every effect becomes the cause of something else. I think this is fairly undisputed. So whenever something happens, or we've an action is performed, or causes it happens, then we can have an effect of two types. So I've just kind of put them here, and the effect can be pleasurable. So we're gonna, well, the Sanskrit term for that is punya, which I'm not going to use. I'm just going to call them red apples. So they're red, juicy, sweet apples that are pleasurable. Okay, so they're delicious. They do not cause any suffering. They bring happiness and pleasure. And an effect can also cause suffering. So the Sanskrit term for it is papa. And here we're talking about, we're just for illustration purposes, I found that somebody using this and it was really helpful. So it's green, sharp apple. So it's just, it's a little bit sharp. It might cause a little bit of, ooh, okay. So it's a bit of something to swallow, and not necessarily very pleasurable. I'm not talking about a pleasure, really lovely, delicious green apples. Okay, so this is just to illustrate this idea of punya and papa. So I'm going to call them red apples and green apples from now. Okay, so just so we've got an idea. And then an effect, well, the action that the effect that happens can be immediate or visible, or can take place later, or it is invisible. So really, if I just hit my cup of tea here, so that would be, the effect would be quite visible, and it will just create a puddle of water here, and everything will get soaked. So that would be very, very visible. And but sometimes, and also immediate, but sometimes some effects can take place later, and they can be invisible. So or that there could be, you know, immediate, doesn't have to be visible necessarily, but it's just a bit of a way of describing them, if you like. So now, looking at the word karma, karma actually means action. So very commonly, it refers to actions. So now, what are actions and how do actions happen? So most of our actions happen, well, this is a little bit theoretical, but when you think about it, you can probably understand it. So our likes and dislikes create some thoughts, you know, put something in our head, and then we act on it. So basically all actions, our actions, come from our likes and dislikes, our preferences, and also we think about it and then we act on it. So if we do not think about something, then an action will not happen. So before an action happens, there is always a thought. It can be a thought that has been planted there for a long time, but or it can be just a thought that has just happened, just preceding the action. But that's the way it works. So now, any actions that we perform can sometimes produce, sorry, there's so many spelling mistakes, so produce unexpected and predictable results, and sometimes the results can be quite predictable. So anything that we do, we have different kind of results, right? So you can get a result that you expect. So it's 5 to 8 and you log on to Zoom and you expect it to work all right, and you could get less than what you expected. So you expect something and then you get less, or you could get something that is more than you expected. So these are how the actions can be. So we can get more than we expect, or less than we expect, or as expected. And then these actions, as we've seen, can be pleasurable, or they can be they can cause suffering, if you like. And then we also see that some of these actions are visible, and then some of these invisible results we cannot see. So so the word karma, sometimes we say my karma is, you know, what we mean by my karma here is the invisible results that are waiting to happen. And this is what is known as my karma in this life. So basically they are things that haven't happened yet, but are fructifying in the coming, or have fructified so far. So these are result of the invisible results that are waiting to be fructified, and this is what we commonly term as my karma, commonly speaking. Okay, so now we're going to look at different school of thoughts of how people think about karma, and people think what the results that happen, what do they depend on. So the first group of people, they think that results, or any fruits of any action, so I'm using results and fruits interchangeably, so the results of any action depends exclusively on the efforts that we put in. Okay, so there's nothing else, but you put in maximum effort, so you're going to get the results from this, from your efforts, right? So this is just for explanation purposes. So in this explanation, what people think, well, you're the captain of the ship, and you are solely in control of what happens, and nothing else matters. And if you're a good captain, and you know you're going to work hard, you're not going to fall asleep, and you've got a good team and everything will be great. But what this approach does, it ignores the factors that affect us in the voyage. So it could be factors beyond our control. And I think one one common thing would probably be the weather. You know, you could be the greatest captain, but if there is bad weather or whatever else, then there are other factors that this thinking that way is that whatever happens to us is 100% on our efforts, ignores this, which we know isn't right. So here we also know that the reason this is not correct is that using our free will, so this is the free will here, all the efforts that we put in, all we do is choose to act. So we choose to do things, we choose to do things our way. But we very soon in life have realized that we can't choose the outcome of that action, right? So, I mean, obviously there might be a relation between what you get, but really we cannot choose the outcome of that action on our own. So this is because the results depend partly on the invisible fruits of our past actions and also on others. This depends on other things, and this depends on other things in nature or etc. So another school of thought, another way people look at things about results and fruits that we get, people say, well, actually, everything that happens are basically random. So we don't really know. It's all maybe will of a higher order, and everything that happens, we just take it and it's all very random. So we know that randomness does exist. So for instance, you know, if you're in a room and you light an incense stick, which I've done here, even though there is no external wind going in this room, the smoke is going to go in one way. And it goes in one way because of the movement of the airs that we cannot see, of the atoms. So we know that some element of randomness exists, but then there is really no basis to say that all hidden variables are random. I mean, obviously scientists cannot prove the existence of invisible fruits of our actions. I mean, because it's not something that can be tested in a lab. It's not something that's visible. I mean, science deals a lot with things that are visible, things that can be tested. But here, these cannot be tested, but that's not to mean because it cannot be tested, that means it doesn't exist. So really, to kind of say that all hidden variables or all things that happen is because of random things is not correct at all. And we know that. And then there is another school of thought which says everything is ordained, or if you like, everything is predestined, everything is predetermined, and that's it. So the problem with this is that it means that everything happens because of the invisible fruits of all actions. So this totally negates the role of human effort. So that means really, if you believe this theory, it means that any action that we do is pretty much pointless. I mean, why are we acting if everything is already predetermined? So it also negates the idea of randomness. So that sometimes when people do believe this theory about everything is ordained, it can lead to certain misconception. So it leaves people to be resigned. It leaves people to be submissive. So to just think, well, I can't do anything about this and I've got to accept this all the time, and which might not be true. And there is this idea of being fatalistic, which can have a lot of negative consequences. Okay, so these are just to explain, these are different ways of thinking about the results that we get in life or for our actions. So now, where is the role? What do we actually believe, and what does this philosophy believe? Is as I said, the above theories are based on the existence of one factor alone to determine what happens. But this theory says that every action is actually a combination of the two main factors. So invisible fruits, human effort, and randomness. So there are all three main factors, if you like. I've put randomness there because we can explain that another time. But mainly it is invisible fruits and human effort. I mean, the idea of randomness can be a little bit complicated, because what is random to us, but there might be a logic to explain that randomness there that that's just not known to us. And so really every action is a combination of invisible fruits and human effort. So there are both that needs to be present for us to get the result of an action. Okay, so is everyone still with me? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so now we're going to look at this metaphor, which can help us to understand. So a little bit about what we've been talking about. So let's say this is a riverbank, and you are at point A here, and then you need to get to point B. Okay, so and then there is a little bit of a current here in this river, and you've got to swim. Okay, and to get from A to B. So maybe what happens is, if you start at point A and your efforts is actually the swimming, is your physical efforts to swim here, right? So this is just a metaphor to help us understand this. Then there is all these, there are currents in the water that is taking us a little bit to the right. Okay, so one way of looking at it is the current that's pushing us is, if you like, the invisible fruits or the karmic currents here. So all these effects from the invisible effects from past actions that are kind of pushing us a little bit to the right. Okay, so it's just a metaphor. So then what do we do? So does that mean we cannot get from point A to B? Of course we can, right? So just because there are some currents there doesn't mean that we can't get from A to B. So what we could do is we could walk from point A a little bit to the right, and then, from point A we walk to the left a little bit and then swim, and then the current will bring us to point B, right? Or what we could do is, once we've gone in the direction of that red arrow, then what we can do is once we get to point, I should have put point C here. So once we get to this point, we can actually walk across the grass to point B. So there are always options, is what we're trying to say. So similarly, if you are trying to get somewhere, you're trying to go to work and there is a lot of traffic, what you do is you take another route. Right? So there's always workarounds. You don't like your job. You kind of think, oh, really can't stand this, so therefore I'll change my jobs. So whether we like it or not, there are always obstacles in life, and we almost unknowingly react to them all the time. So you can call them whatever you like. So why there is traffic, why things are happening the way they are, it's just karmic currents, not necessarily yours, but you're just part of it and it's happening. So basically, we're always very good at automatically reacting to these things when they happen, and a lot of time we do them unconsciously. It's just second nature. We just go. Okay, so now, Now I wanted to look a little bit about these adversity of karmic currents. So we are saying that the karmic currents, they can be good things or they can be bad things. But here we're just trying to sort of use this metaphor to say, what do we do? So when there is karmic currents, when there are karmic currents around, does that mean we haven't got any choice? Does that mean we stop there? What happens? So imagine the same river, and imagine now there's been heavy rains, which there has been over the last month. So, and the current is really, really heavy, and it's the bed has, the bank has now swollen. So what do we do? So there are always choices, right? So what can we do is we can either wait for the current to pass and then cross the river. Or sometimes we can say, oh, right, we wanted to go from point A to B, but maybe we'll now choose another destination. So we don't need to necessarily go from A to B. We might be flexible about it. We might say, well, we'll find a way. We'll find other things, other destinations where we want to be. So really what I'm trying to say here is that despite the fact that we are subject to these karmic currents, or there are these invisible effects that happens in our lives, it doesn't mean we are helpless. It just means that there are choices and there are things that we have to do. So sometimes the choice is not immediate, is not something that we can do immediately, but it could be that we need to be a little bit patient about it. We can do other things. So that's always a good thing to think about, is that we cannot assume that we are helpless, and this assumption about being helpless is very unproductive, and it is a mistake. It's not actually true that we are helpless. We've just got to make different choices, maybe choices that we hadn't thought about. I mean, you know, we had never thought that we were going to be doing these lectures. We'd never thought that we were going to be doing it online. Now, all these things you've just got to adjust and adapt, basically. That's what this is saying. Okay, so now before... so far, what we've looked at with this idea of karma is that there are the results of actions can give us pleasure, can give us displeasure or pain or suffering, and but then it doesn't mean that we are helpless. So we shouldn't go with we shouldn't look at the school of thought that says everything is predetermined, because that's not true. We've always got a free will. We've always got a choice about what we do. Okay, so far? Right, so now I'm going to move a little bit forward, looking at the type of karma. Oops. The type, so sorry, I don't know why that A is there. So there are 3 types of karma, and I will explain them with a lot more examples. So don't worry about the words in green that are in Sanskrit. So there is accumulated karma, and then there is karma that are fructifying now, that are happening now, which is the result of why we are in the situation we're in, why we are where we are. And then there is the future karma, so the karma that will happen in the future. So really, another way of looking at this, and sometimes people use this this metaphor again. So this is the bag of quivers here, with a lot of arrows in the bag. So basically, these are all the red apples and the green apples that we have accumulated. So these are all the results that we have accumulated. And so over infinite lifetimes, I'll come back to this point. And then what is happening now is the arrow that is already in motion. So an arrow has already been set and it's already in motion. So this is the life that is unfolding with us at the moment. And then the arrow that you're about to release is all the free will that we've got. And then where that arrow will go, what will happen, we don't know. Okay, so we are acting, as I said earlier on, karma also means action. So we're performing all these karma, all these actions. But what the fruit of these actions that we're doing now will reap in the future, we have no idea. Doesn't mean we don't have to do them. This doesn't mean, but it's just, but this is our free will. So once we need to release this arrow, we have to know where we want it to go. We have an aim, we have a target. So this is a little bit of an analogy of what I've explained earlier on about these three karmas, these three types of karmas, if you like. So now I will explain a little bit about karma and reincarnation. So we could be spending a week discussing all of these. So here, if you like, on top, these are all green apples and yellow and red apples. So these are the punya and the papa. So the pleasurable results and the not so pleasurable ones that have been accumulated over infinite births. So we talked about it's not a linear. So we in talk number 3, we talked about this idea of a cycle of a circle. Or even last time we talked about this, where life happens in circles and in cycles. So here, in a circle, we don't really know where the beginning is and where the end is. So therefore, we kind of, and because we say that the Atma is unborn, so therefore we assume that there's been infinite births here. So how many births, we don't know. Okay, so and so there's been karma that has been accumulated over all these years that are actually fructifying now. So in this life, so if you look at the in this life on the left-hand side, so the result of what has happened of our life now are the karma that are fructifying, which gives rise to this life. So basically, we come to this life with the results that have fructified, and we come with a set amount of red apples and green apples, so amount of pleasure and amount of pain, and that is by definition what a human life is. So if we look at this point here with the with all the red apples, we know that is not possible. I mean, the human life is not really 100% pleasure. That doesn't really exist. And sometimes this is the concept that people refer to as heaven. So heaven is not necessarily a place, but it is where there are, so as you can see, there are a finite amount of apples here. So therefore, once all these pleasures have been purged, if you like, or experienced, then they go, and then we move away from this. So similarly, if we look at, so again here, somebody who is particularly unfortunate, we can say that maybe they have more green apples in this life than red apples. But then really, strictly speaking, nobody has got only green apples. I mean, even though life is terrible sometimes, but there is always something that is positive. There are always something that are good and have to be acknowledged. So therefore, in the human life, these two are not really real possibilities. And also, the having only green apples is what people would term as being in hell. Okay, and again, hell is not necessarily a place. It is just it could be where a situation where these are being these are being um, purged, if you like. And then once they've been exhausted, because there's a finite number of apples there, then move on. So basically, what happens here in the with the picture on the left, with the fructified karma in this life, so that's the prarabdha karma which we looked at. So that's the one that is fructifying in this life. So the amount of apples that you have will actually determine how long we live. So if you've got a lot of experiences to be had in this life that have been fructified in this life, then we'll live longer. And if there isn't a lot, then we will not live that long. So basically that's how this is, well, live that long, as in we will not have this body that long. So to experience those karmas, we need a body. So so we cannot experience without a body. So we have a body in this life, so we can experience the karmas that have fructified up to now, that are ready for us to experience. So basically, that's the idea. So now in this life, we will experience all these, and then as these have been purged or experienced, then the body is dropped, and then something happens, and then the next lot of when the next lot of karma is fructified, if you like, then we get a new body to help us, to enable us to experience those karmas that we need with that body that we need to do it. So now, the other thing to understand is that what happens in this life. So if we look at the number of green and green and red apples on the left, so what we can add apples directly to this pile. So depending on what we do in this life, we can add directly to the karma that is fructifying in this life. So we can add to this pile, or we can also add to the bit on top here with all the accumulated apples. So if we do a lot of good deeds in this life, we will have more pleasure to fructify, the ones that are fructifying immediately or instantly. So that will come to this pile, or some of them will also go in the upper pile there on top here, with all the ones that we have accumulated over so many lifetimes. So basically, this is what it is. And again, that is the free will that we have, because as a result of what we do, some things will happen there. Okay, so I think, well, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is, so one of the basic things that we asked, one of the basic questions that we asked before is, what am I doing here? And why am I here? Why am I in this life? Why am I born to these parents? Why am I in this country? Or all these things. And the simple answer is because of my accumulated karma. So that's why I'm here. So but exactly, I mean, it's quite complicated. It's not a direct cause and effect. It's not something that you can trace, or it's not something that you can use to predict either. Okay, so then the other thing that we might want to ask is, why am I here today? Why am I listening to this? why am I part of this group? So again, the short answer to everything is it's because of my accumulated karma and my free will. So you kind of thought, okay, this seems remotely interesting, and I'll have a look. But the other things to understand is that, especially when it comes to spiritual knowledge, what is often said is that this is not the first time that you're hearing this. So this is something that has been planted somewhere in your memory, very, very deep, not in this life necessarily, but these are the impressions that happens. And for those who understand the Sanskrit words, so they are the vasanas, or if, oops, oh, I don't know where these are coming from, but never mind. So they are things that have happened in the past that guide my interest now. So we don't really know directly what I've done before and why, but then there must have been things that have happened that guide your interest. I mean, you know, we are all very, very different. And why are we different? And also sometimes you can think, oh, well, it depends on the genes, it depends on whatever. But then we also know from you know, this nurture nature debate that people have always had, if we look at twins even, they can be very, very different. Or even children from the same mother are very, very different. They come with their all past baggage, if you like, not in a bad sort of way, not with a bad sense of the word, but they come with all the accumulated karma, all their impressions that is somewhere comes in with this body. That, you know, if you like, it's this hard disk that, or this little disk that comes into when we get born. So this is what we're here. So basically, the point is, this is new to us, maybe to some of us in this life, but then it might not be. These are things that, why you're interested maybe in these things. You might think, oh, I'm just a bit curious, or maybe it's because there's nothing else on telly today, or, you know, it could be all sorts of reasons that you give. But then really speaking, there are some impressions inside that kind of guide, not just this class or whatever, but, you know, just using this as an example, but whatever you do are things that have happened or impressions that you've made. So basically what we want to be doing is, there are in future classes we will be exploring this thing about impressions, of what make impressions, and what are the kind of impressions that we want to leave for ourselves for the future, or even for now. So this is just something for you to think about and see how that sits with you. And so I think the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the relevance of the doctrine of karma for us. So what does all this mean? You know, we've looked at karma, and what actually is the implication, and why is this important for us? So I think it provides the best known explanation to some of the basic questions. So it provides an explanation of who we are, why we're here, why have we got this body, and also other questions in life about why things are the way they are. So it provides quite a logical explanation of things, which kind of is not in line with all these three theories or this school of thoughts that we looked at. So oops, sorry, we're getting green. Okay, thank you. So so here, well, it helps us answer, why was I born to this mother? Why am I here? You know, it kind of helps us to answer these questions. And also, it helps us to understand this very interesting point, is that, you know, sometimes we think, why do bad things happen to good people? A lot of times we say that, you know, you've got somebody you really love who's going through a terrible time, and you know them very well, and you know they've done nothing to deserve what they're going through. You know, then how do you explain that? And I think I did talk about this briefly previously, and when we talked about Ishvara, and we said that one of the problems is that we think God gives this all to us, and God is not playing ball, God is abandoned me, or all sorts of explanation, which sorry, may not be very helpful. So the theory of karma kind of really helps us to understand why bad things happen to good people. And also it helps us, so moving one down, it helps us to gracefully accept some situations which are beyond our control. So I did use this term, gracefully accept, last time as well. So there are some situations that there is nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. And how do we accept this situation? And this provides a little bit of a framework that might sit a bit more comfortably than other explanations about why we are in the situation we are in. And also it helps us to cope better when tragedy strikes. So when this happens, we know why. We know that we also know that there is always a way out. So the correct understanding of what karma is, we know that there is always free will, and we know that there is always a way out. So, and the other important thing is, it is a helpful guide for our actions nowadays. I mean, now what we do with our arrow, where we shoot that arrow, and what will come back to us, we'll just have to have a little think about that, and it will help us guide our actions in a way that we ensure that we always have, not just in this life and whenever else, we have more juicy red apples than other things. So we just think about that result of that might come back to haunt us, and it will in different ways, in ways that we don't know. And also it helps us to take responsibility for our own actions, which I think is really important as well. I mean, you know, so playing the blaming game is pretty pointless. So if we say, oh, I'm like this because this is what happened to me in childhood. Okay, that may be the cause, that may be some explanation of what happened. But then you've got a free will now. What do you do with that? What do we do with that? What is our responsibility to do something for us to make our lives better? So understanding all these things kind of help us to take responsibility for our actions, or to make things better for us from now on, irrespective of what has happened before. And also it kind of helpfully tells us that the force of karma, so we believe that there is something that has happened before, which is why we're in the way we are. But then there is always an option. So in the metaphor that we looked at, there is always an option. It might not be the option that you originally had, or how you saw life unfold, but there is always an option. So this is just putting together some of the relevance. So there are more that you can find for yourself as well, about why understanding the doctrine of karma is for us. And again, so before I finish, I'd just like to say that as always, I've given you food for thought. And I don't ask you to believe any of the things that I've said, but all I ask is for you to kind of think about them, to question what I've said. And you know, there are some things that will not be clear, and some things that so to just encourage you to think about all these things. So one of the practice is to listen, and a lot of the practice is just to listen. But then there is also the work about thinking about what we've said, and then understanding it yourself, experiencing it yourself, trying to relate it to yourself, and understanding, and just be true to yourself to see where you are, where you think you might have questions, and always come back for questions. And if I know the answer, I will answer. If not, I will ask for help. So yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. So we will finish here, and then we will open up to questions. So we'll finish with the closing prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you very much.